2015. Happy birthday to no one. Hello and welcome to the Red Rock Fantasy Basketball Monster Podcast, brought to you by Moneyball.com.au and Stone Circus. And if you want to be like Moneyball.com.au and Stone Circus, or more like Stone Circus, you can sponsor the podcast for a day by leaving a review on iTunes. And a big shout out to everyone who's done that. You've been smashing it. I've got a stack of them in there, and I want more. I want as many people who listen to this podcast to leave a review on iTunes, because you don't know how helpful it is. Many of you would have seen that the podcast is now up inside the top 15 on the Australian iTunes store. I'm not sure where it is on the American store, so if anyone wants to give me a heads up, if it's anywhere close to that, I'll be thrilled. I really doubt that it is, but please let me know where it is if you guys listening in the States. But the more reviews that the show gets, the higher up the rankings it goes. So thank you to Stone Circus for sponsoring today's show. And of course, Moneyball, Australasia's only daily fantasy sports site, where you can go on and take on me in the daily Red Rock leagues, the head-to-heads that I post, the 20-team leagues that are all up there, plus all the big GPPs. And a couple of people tweeting questions about explaining cash games and GPPs, mainly the Australian listeners who haven't had much experience with daily, but we'll cover that later on in the show for you guys who are curious about what I mean when I talk about cash games and GPPs and the differences between the two formats, because it's not a huge difference, but there is definitely a way you want to go about it when looking at these sort of formats for how you're going to view your view your lineups. All right, so Tuesday's games, there were 7 games on, much like Monday. They're the perfect amount of games in my opinion. Actually, this week pretty good in terms of the games. 7 Monday, 7 Tuesday, 10 Wednesday, 5 Thursday, 10 Friday. That's a really good spread of games. I would love it to just be 7 every day. Maybe a couple of eight-day games, but otherwise everything been pretty good in terms of the workload and the games that are on. It makes it easier to keep on top of what's happening. It makes it easier for daily fantasy. That's the perfect amount of games. So congratulations to the NBA to really getting these. Last week was a bit of a nightmare with those 14 games on Wednesday. But these 10 games, 7 games, 8 games, it's a beautiful sort of spot for us to really digest it and look at what's going on in the NBA from a fantasy point of view, which is, of course, what we're mainly doing on this podcast. Now, let's look at the performances from Tuesday night, and we'll start, as always, with the monstrous line of the night, and I'll give that to Kyle Lowry of the Toronto Raptors. He was huge. He's been massive all season, Lowry. 27 points, 4 threes, 5 rebounds, 10 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, hit all 5 of his free throws, went 60% from the field. He's had a fantastic season. In 9 category leagues, he is currently the 2nd-ranked player, and towards the end of this week, what I'll do is I'm going to go through and give you my top 20 guys, based on the way that I do the head-to-head rankings, and can tell you who the top 20 guys are. But at the moment, Basketball Monster 9-cat leagues, Kyle Lowry is ranked 2nd. He's averaging almost 20 points a game and almost 2 threes, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, a block, insane percentages. Steph Curry 1, Kyle Lowry 2. He was a guy that slid significantly, and he was a guy that I always was mentioning in the preseason that how awesome. He was a top 10 guy at the start of last season for the first couple of months, and then got injured and had a real issue adapting to that injury, and it dropped him down a lot of places. Now, his big preseason brought him back up, and you could get him in the 20s, but now that's looking like even a bit of a steal. He probably can't keep up this sort of ridiculous rate, and if he does keep up this ridiculous rate, he's in the conversation for starting All-Star, MVP conversation, that sort of stuff, because he's 25 and 8 with 3 steals and a block. They're pretty crazy numbers. It's very unlikely that he keeps that pace up, but for now, if you drafted Kyle Lowry, congratulations. It's been a pretty good start. The waiver wire line of the night goes to, I'm sure everybody knows who this is going to, especially if you've seen the title of the podcast or the title of the video. It goes to my boy, Evan Fournier. And Evan has a new nickname. If you check Basketball Reference, his nickname is now Don't Google. And for anybody who doesn't know why he's got the nickname Don't Google, Google Fournier. Google Fournier in images, just Fournier, and see what comes up. And then you'll know why you don't want to Google Fournier. But Evan, my boy with the man bun, 43 minutes today, 30 points, 4 threes, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. I have been getting so many questions about Evan Fournier so far today. He's currently ranked inside the top 50. He's averaging 18.5 points, 2 threes, 5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 1.5 steals. Matt talked about how Orlando doesn't have a great fantasy schedule, but at the moment, with the way he's playing, he's outplaying schedule concerns. He, as a top 50 guy, schedule doesn't have any impact whatsoever. Basically, as a top 100 guy, schedule doesn't have any impact whatsoever. So at the moment, I think that Fournier pretty much has to be grabbed in all 12-team leagues. Now, there's a chance that he fades, and I think there's a pretty big chance that he fades out of standard league must-own territory. Scott Skiles is not relying on Mario Hezonja, and Aaron Gordon is barely getting any minutes. And Fournier is not disappointing when he plays, and I think that's part of it. That's part of it as well, is that, yes, he's playing big minutes, but he's not playing big minutes and playing badly. He's playing really, really well. Now, the averaging 37 minutes a game, that's probably going to come down. You don't think he's going to continue that sort of pace for the whole season. But for now, I think that Fournier is a guy that you want to add in most situations, and you're going to have to do it now, because after this sort of game, pretty much everyone is going to be looking at Evan Fournier and going, "Jesus, is he a guy that I should be adding on my team?" And I reckon the answer for most things is probably yes. I need to go in and really have a look at his projections on Basketball Monster today and adjust sort of what's happening, especially his minute load, because he's just getting so many minutes. He's shooting the ball extremely well. That's the other thing that may not be sustainable. He's shooting the ball at 46%. He was a 44 guy last year, 42 the year before. And that could have changed, but it's a little bit hard to think that he's become that good a shooter. But the minutes is the thing that's a real key. So that's going to have to be adjusted. So I think that Evan Fournier is a guy that you want to have a look at. Definitely in 12-team leagues, I reckon you can find a spot for him. In 10-team leagues, why not? The minutes are there. Skiles is riding him. Why don't you ride him as well? I'm going to be looking to ride him as much as possible, and I do not mean that in a dirty way. The young gun of the night goes to Jordan Clarkson of the Los Angeles Lakers, another guy who I'm a massive, massive fan of. I was really hesitant with him this season just because of the minutes, and up until today, it's sort of been the case. He hasn't been able to get massive amount of time on the court, but he played 37 minutes here, 30 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, great percentages, hit 4 3-pointers. It's a career high in scoring for Jordan Clarkson as well. And when you look at his numbers, he's only getting 31 minutes a game, but he's averaging 18 points, almost 2 threes, not much else. 0.8 steals, 0.8 blocks, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. The 56% from the field is what is keeping him in the top 50. Now, if he stops shooting 56%, which he's not going to continue to do, he's not a 50-plus field goal guy. Now, he's a pretty high field goal guy for a point guard. He's a 46 sort of guy, I would say. We've got him currently projected at 44. I probably think that needs to be looked at as well. He's capable of these big sort of numbers, and that's fantastic. I really like Clarkson as a player, and Byron Scott, get him out there. Just let him run these minutes. Now, in this game, he played big minutes. D'Angelo Russell has really, really struggled. He played 20 minutes. That's fine. He doesn't need to play huge amounts of minutes. Kobe's not getting the big minutes, which is great. Lou Williams is not getting, well, he got over 30 here, but in general, he's not getting over 30 minutes. Clarkson is probably is he the best guard on this team? Maybe, probably. He probably is the best guard on this team. And in some 10-team leagues, he's not owned, and I don't know why. He has to be owned in all 10 and 12-team leagues. I know that I was a little bit soft on him in the off-season because of the sharing of the ball and what are they going to do with Russell and Williams and Young and Bryant and all these sort of guys, but still had to be owned. He still was going to be a top 100 guy. I didn't think he'd be a top 50 guy, and that will regress when his field goal percentage comes down. But for now, there's no doubt that he has to be owned everywhere. The dud of the night. We go back to a team that we talked about before in the Toronto Raptors. Kyle Lowry with the monstrous line of the night. Damari Carroll with the dud of the night. 34 minutes for Damari. 3 points, 5 rebounds, an assist, and a block. Not the greatest night. 1 of 8 shooting. Definitely doesn't help him out there as well. He's been playing really, really decently. But the problem with him this season is the field goal percentage is well down. He was a 49% shooter last year, 47 the year before. He's at 37 this year. So there's been some big games. There's been some bad games. His free throws are at 50% as well. if you own him, don't worry. He's not going to be a 37 and 50% shooter. These numbers will come up. That'll help his scoring come up. He's still doing everything else basically the same. 5.3 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, 0.3 blocks, 2 threes. Everything is the same as last season, if not marginally better. His percentages are way down. That will increase. And when those come back up, then he's going to give that sort of same value. So I think that he's a guy that if someone's dropping him, they're pretty dumb. They shouldn't be dropping him. Apologies if you did drop him. Didn't mean to call you dumb, but don't drop him. Low ball offers on him if people are really worried about what sort of production. If they look at Basketball Monsters ranking and see him ranked 179th, by all means, that's better for you because he's going to be a better player than that when the season, as the season rolls on and things start to come more into place for him and the shot starts falling, which it undoubtedly will. All right, that's all the awards for today's show's done. Let's move in and talk about the games in a little bit more detail. As you can see on the screen, if you are watching, the box scores are now up on the screen. The first game, the Charlotte Hornets and the Chicago Bulls. The pesky Hornets. Someone tweet today that Charlotte equals Golden State East. They put up 130 on the Bulls, absolutely destroying them. So a lot of the minutes we don't need to read too much into, especially for the Bulls. Pau Gasol with 23. Nikola Mirotic was way down at 24, and he had a pretty poor showing with his shot not falling. Bobby Portis got into the game and played 10 minutes for 10 points. Jimmy Butler only played 32. He was still 26 points and 4 threes. Doug McDermott had 30 minutes, 17 points and 5 threes. Nice nights from these guys, but let's not read too much into it. Derrick Rose, 4 points in 24 minutes, 5 assists, so still helped you a little bit there. Forget about it. It was a blowout. And the same thing goes on the Hornets side of things. A lot of tweets coming at me today. Pick up Jeremy Lamb. Jeremy Lamb played 26 minutes. He scored 20 points with 2 threes, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. And that's really good. He also went 9 of 10 from the field, and he is not going to go 9 of 10 again this season. I'm pretty confident that he's not going to shoot 90% from the field for the rest of the year. So if he didn't go 9 of 10, what does he give you? 12 points? Like not a huge amount, nothing to get too excited about. Yes, it's a big line, but look into it a little bit more. 9 of 10 is nowhere near sustainable. And PJ Harrison is shit, but they do like him as a defender on that wing, and they like him to play some sort of defensive minutes there. It's gonna limit Lamb's upside. It's also going to limit Lynn's upside a little bit as well, who went 15, 5, and 4. But it doesn't. Just because that Hairston is in front of him playing 20 minutes, Lamb is going to be restricted from getting big minutes and playing a big role. So for now, he's a deeper league only sort of player to me. Al Jefferson, limited minutes. Nick Batum, 18 and 8 with a pretty decent performance from him. Kemba only played 26 minutes. All these guys were restricted because of the nature of the game. We saw Frank Kaminsky hit a couple of threes. Spencer Hawes hit a couple of threes. The Hornets were just on fire. Marvin Williams, this is Marvin Williams. 4 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. I'm glad he finally had a stinker. If you picked him up, don't drop him. But this is the kind of thing we not necessarily have to look forward to, but this is more Marvin Williams than the 20 and 10 guy with 4 threes. That's not Marvin Williams. This is closer to him. So you're still holding on to him, and don't be worried about the 25 minutes that he played. That will he should go back up to I don't want him to, but he should go up to more minutes than that. This was a blowout that's definitely impacted the way that this game played out. The next game up, the Atlanta Hawks and the Miami Heat. Jeff Teague, 26, 6 and 9, a big night from Teague. And Dennis Schroeder is all but invisible at the moment. 16 minutes for Schroeder, 4, 2, and 3. 10-team leagues, he's done. 12-team leagues, I'd be dropping him as well. Kyle Korver struggled again. Not dropping him, though. 9 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. There's a possibility he sits tomorrow with a back-to-back, so it's tough going if you're a Kyle Korver owner at this stage. He just couldn't get anything happening. He did take 11 shots, couldn't get them to fall. Things will start to turn around from him. Kent Bazemore was solid again. Definitely not spectacular, but solid. 10 and 5 with 3 assists, a steal, and a couple of threes. And Al Horford, his usual decent self, well, not even decent, great self, 17 and 13. While Paul Millsap went 12 and 10 with 3 steals and a block. So pretty much status quo from Horford and Millsap. Teague with a nice night. Bazemore with a solid night. The questions, I'm pretty sure when I get to the listener questions later on, there's questions coming at me because I know I saw it on Twitter, and I was getting so many questions on Twitter today, which was awesome. Apologies if I didn't get a chance to get back to you. Bazemore or Fournier? I love, and I was asked this question a lot on DFS sites today as well, and I actually thought Bazemore was going to be the better option. I think now that Fournier has to be the guy that you look at in season-long leagues, I don't think that either of these guys are going to maintain this sort of value for big stretches of this season. But for now, Fournier is getting more minutes, and he's a guy that I've always liked. I've never liked Bazemore as a player. I've always liked what Fournier was able to do, and he's actually finally starting to put it together. So that's obviously awesome. From that point of view. So he's a guy that I'm looking at over Kent Bazemore. The Heat, Hassan Whiteside, 23 and 14, 4 blocks. He went 11 of 12 from the field. That's pretty good. And 1 of 2 from the free throw line. That is 3 monster games in a row from Hassan Whiteside. He's joining that Andre Drummond, who we'll talk about later, DeAndre Jordan area of elite punt free throw big men. He's scoring a lot more than I anticipated. I don't think anyone could have thought that he was going to put up the sort of scoring numbers that he is at the moment, which if we have a look, bring up his scoring numbers, he's averaging 15.8 points, 11 rebounds, 0.8 steals, 3.5 blocks on 76% shooting. He's putting up some massive, massive numbers. And look, there's always a chance that things go completely off the rails with this guy. But if he starts putting this solidly for the next month, that risk is eliminated to me. So I love what he's doing at the moment. But it is definitely punt territory. He's only taking 2.3 free throws a game, so that is recoverable from. But if it gets up to 4, then you're done for at that sort of percentage. So just monitor to see how that's going. But have it in your head that if you're going to look at getting Hassan Whiteside in a trade, punt free throws has to be your consideration. Goran Dragic had his best game, 19, 5 and 2, 3 steals, 3 threes, and a block. A nice performance there. Chris Bosh, 9 and 14 with 3 steals, 2 blocks, and a 3. A good all-round performance from him. And Dwayne Wade played 27 minutes. He was dealing with a migraine, so that limited him. He missed most of the third quarter with that migraine. We hope it doesn't keep him out from playing too much time, if any. He had 21 points and 3 assists with a block and a 3, so some pretty good numbers from Dwayne Wade. We just hope that this migraine is not a concern. Luol Deng was limited to 25 minutes, and Justice Winslow was not that great in his 23 with 4 points and 4 rebounds. Going to talk about Mario Chalmers a little bit later on. Tyler Johnson got 21 minutes with Gerald Green out. We don't need to worry too much about Tyler Johnson. As I mentioned, I think it was yesterday's podcast or the day before, Tyler Johnson's going to have a few decent games, but he's not going to be able to sustain it for long periods of time. The next game up on the board, the Indiana Pacers and Detroit Pistons. George Hill, 12, 6 and 6, 2 threes, 4 steals, and a block. I'm ready to declare George Hill as real. I think I declared it the other day. He has got this role. He is the number 2 guy in Indiana. He is second half George Hill from last season. I would be shocked at this point if he's not a top 50 player by the end of the year. He is putting up stats and usage, and they're looking for him, and he is just really, really aggressive, and it's great because I do love George Hill. I hate his hair, but I do like what he's able to do. He's a massive late-round steal for so many people who drafted him. Paul George, 16, 9 and 6, 2 threes and 2 steals. And the field goal percentage continues to be a real, real problem for Paul George. It will improve, but he was always a borderline punt guy anyway. Monte Ellis back on track, 15, 3 and 3 with 3 steals. A nice night there. And Rodney Stuckey, 23 points off the bench. Do not get too sucked in with that. Jan Mahinmi lasted 5 minutes before exiting with a back problem. 0.00000 for Jan Mahinmi. We don't know if this is going to be a long-term issue. It doesn't appear to be at this point. So if you did pick him up, no need to panic drop unless there's someone great that you want to go and add. Jordan Hill got minutes in his place, 10 and 6. Miles Turner played 15 minutes for 6 and 4 with 3 blocks. And Turner, again, he's just flashing potential. Whenever he plays, the stats come really quickly. They're just not trusting him with big minutes. It makes it hard to hold on to him in those shallow formats. But you know that it's tantalizing that, how long do you wait? I'd be waiting a week to see if he's able to get those minutes up to 25 or 26, because then he's going to be able to wreak havoc across the fantasy landscape. But for now, it's just not enough. He's just not getting enough time. CJ Miles has cooled off after a pretty hot start. 30 minutes still in the starting role, 8 points and 2 threes with 2 steals. So he still has some value there if you're looking at those steals and threes. But his sort of bigger nights have cooled off a little bit, and George Hill is taking a little bit away from what CJ Miles is doing. On to the Detroit Pistons. Andre Drummond. I was massively high on Drummond coming into this season. He's playing for a big contract. He's getting a max contract. There's no doubt about it. 43 minutes for Drummond, 25 points, 29 rebounds, 3 steals, a block. There, look, 71% from the field. Yes, he was bad at his free throws, but that's a huge performance from Drummond. Another huge performance. He's been able to put up some big numbers this season. If we look at what he's averaging, and this is how good he's on Basketball Monster 9 category value, considering how bad his free throws are, and he's at a negative Z score of minus 3.57, so that's really bad. He's the 28th ranked player. And when I do my head-to-head ranks, he'll be a top 10 guy. There's no doubt. He's averaging 20 and 20. He's averaging 20 points and 19.5 rebounds. That's 20 and 20. He is also at 1.8 steals and 1.8 blocks. These numbers they cannot continue, but you feel like nobody's going to be able to stop him. In the Eastern Conference, there are no centers who can really. Him and Whiteside maybe, but he is just. No Monroe is definitely a good thing for Andre Drummond. He is putting up, and he's playing 39 minutes a game. That'll have to come back a little bit. But his field goal percentage is under 50. Once that gets over 50, we're talking, is he a top 10 player? Is he a top 7 head-to-head guy? Oh, I don't know. He is just putting up crazy numbers. Marcus Morris continues to get big minutes, 11 and 7 with a 3 in 39 minutes. 2 steals, 2 blocks is completely misrepresentative of what he normally does. I don't think he provided 1 steal or 1 block this season before this game. But the minutes are still massive there for Marcus Morris. You have to keep owning him. Ersan Ilyasova got back into the coach's good books playing 35 minutes. 12 points, 2 threes, 4 rebounds. He's a borderline 12-team league guy, but I still like him in that format. Reggie Jackson, 20 and 6 with a steal and 2 threes. And KCP played 42 minutes, 12, 5, and 5. And I like him in 12-team leagues. The bench, on the other hand, there is 0 value. They scored 2 points, the bench. Spencer Dinwiddie got 2 points in 7 minutes. Stanley Johnson is droppable in everything outside of dynasty leagues and, say, 16-team leagues at this point. He just cannot crack the rotation. Marcus Morris and Ersan Ilyasova are playing all those minutes at the 3 and 4. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's playing all the minutes at the 2. Stanley Johnson can't get a look in. He played just 12 minutes tonight. Ilyasova plays less, and maybe that allows Johnson to get more, but he's not in a place where he's going to get 25 plus, hardly at all. So don't expect too much from Stanley Johnson. He can be moved on for one of these other hot players. The Orlando Magic and the New Orleans Pelicans, Evan Fournier, we've touched on him. Nick Vucevic, 22 and 13, a steal and a block. Another block for Vucevic, just keeps chalking them up. And Victor Oladipo, 12, 7 and 3. The Magic with good to get their first victory of the season because they've deserved more than being winless up until now. That's great for them. You know I love this team. And Toby Harris, 9 and 13. So some big performances from their big guys, including Evan Fournier. Alfred Payton, a little bit disappointing, 8 points, but he still gave you 10 assists, 4 rebounds, and a steal. And you didn't draft Alfred Payton to score. You didn't draft him to help your percentages. You helped him to get rebounds, assists, and steals. And 4, 10, and 1 of those categories is not a bad night. Now, 5 turnovers isn't ideal. He has been struggling. You'd have to think that he will get better as the season progresses. Aaron Gordon played 4 minutes. 4. 2 points, 2 rebounds. I can't see how you can own Aaron Gordon in a 12-team league. He's averaging 16 minutes a game for this season. Yes, he's got at a block and 0.8 steals and 5 rebounds and 8 points with pretty good percentages. And that ranks him 157th at the moment. And the upside is there, but is Skyle going to let him realize it? Is he going to play 25 minutes? If you're in a 12-team league, say with 14-man benches or 15-man benches, then yeah, Aaron Gordon has a spot. If you're in a 10-team league, no. I can't see how you can hold on to him. I'd rather stream the spot, or there's plenty of other guys out there who are going to get more minutes than what Gordon is at the moment. And a regular 12-team league, it's really touch and go. It really depends on who is available. But for now, I can't say that Aaron Gordon is someone that I definitely want to hold on to because it's about trends and things are not trending well for him on this team. Hazonia played 15 minutes and didn't really contribute much at all, and he's in the same boat. There's no chance of owning him in a 12-team league. Ryan Anderson struggled with his shot, 14 points with 3 threes, 4 rebounds. The 3 steals and a block are pretty nice. They don't happen all that often for him. He's a guy, again, I was pretty down on, and he's been okay but not spectacular. Speaking of okay but not spectacular, Anthony Davis, 14 and 9 on some pretty poor shooting. He went 3 of 12 from the field, 8 of 10 from the line is good. He did add 5 blocks, so he's not a complete write-off, but I know a lot of people who picked him one are a little bit disappointed. Let's just calm down a little bit. Yes, it's been a really slow start for Anthony Davis by his lofty standards. Things will get better. This team is a complete mess with the guys who are out. Davis he'll definitely get better, but it hasn't been a great start if you picked him at number one. They changed the starting lineup a little bit here. Alexei Ajinça moved into the starting lineup, and Dante Cunningham moved out, and Luke Babbitt replaced him. Babbitt went 8 and 8 in 28 minutes. There's nothing to see there with him. And Ajinça went 4 and 4 in his 20 minutes. Nothing to see with him either. Drew Holiday, 23 minutes, 14, 2 and 4 with 2 steals, a block, and 2 threes. I think at this point you pretty much have to own Holiday. Yes, you're going to have some back-to-back issues. Yes, there's going to be some minutes issues, but for now, he's getting enough with it when he plays. He's definitely useful. Eric Gordon went 21 points with 4 assists and 4 threes, and he's somehow available in 12-team league. I have no idea why. Please make sure Eric Gordon is owned in your league. I know people seem to hate him for whatever reasons, not realizing his potential, injuries, but you have to own him at this point. He's putting up definitely numbers that are good enough. If you still own Ish Smith, you can forget about that. He played 17 minutes here. Yes, the 7 assists are nice, but 3 points, 3 rebounds. He was outplayed again by Tony Douglas, who went 9, 6, and 4 with 2 steals. And there's going to be a game coming up here that Drew Holiday is going to sit at some point this week. Douglas is likely to get the more minutes, so he becomes the better DFS play on that sort of day. Whereas Ish Smith has had his role usurped by the latest starter and latest point guard signing. So if the Pelicans come out and say they've signed another point guard, they're going to play over Tony Douglas. That seems to be what they're doing. Fresh guy in, give them the minutes. Douglas is an interesting guy. He's a deeper league player, but he's only going to have value for the next few weeks, at least until Norris Cole returns or Tyreke Evans returns. Not that Norris Cole is any good, but I think he's probably better than Tony Douglas. I'm not a massive proponent of the skills of Norris Cole. The Toronto Raptors and the Dallas Mavericks. Luis Scola, 19 and 12 in 31 minutes in the start, a 3 and 2 steals. He has been dreadful to start the season. This is a really nice performance, and he's going to have occasional ones of these, but picking when it happens, you've got as much of a chance of guessing that as me, so let's not get too wrapped up in what Luis Scola did. DeMar DeRozan, another 20 points and 8 free throws made from 8 attempts. That's exactly what he does. 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. Still a little bit of help, but not as good as the first couple of games. Jonas Valanciunas back at 34 minutes, which is great. 16 and 8 with 2 steals. A nice, solid mid-range performance from Valanciunas. Terrence Ross playing 23 minutes off the bench, 4 points with 2 assists. Nothing to really see there, but he has got a pretty solid 20-minute role off the bench. A lot of people hating the contract he got. I don't really hate it. I think Terrence Ross is an okay player. 3 years, $33 million. I don't think it's a horrible deal by any stretch, especially with the salary cap rising. It's a 3-year deal. Maybe it hamstrings their cap space a little bit, but I don't think it's a horrible contract whatsoever. And Patrick Patterson, 17 minutes for him, 5 rebounds, a steal, no points, missed all 6 of his field goal attempts. He has been a disaster this season. I don't think there's any reason of owning him or Luis Scola in 12-team leagues. For the Mavericks, Dirk played 35 minutes, 18 and 7 with a steal and a block and 3 threes. That's his biggest minute load of the season. He's had some really efficient shooting nights, and he's going to continue to do that. There are going to be nights, though, where he is off his game. But what I really like from Dallas here is the play of Dwight Powell. That's a couple of games in a row. I was big on Dwight Powell in the preseason, keeping an eye on him. 26 minutes, 10 and 10 with 2 steals. 14-team leagues have to pay attention to him now if he's getting 26 minutes a night. He is playing... he's playing backup center. He is one of their more reliable big men. They don't have a huge amount of big men at all. So it's basically him, Zaza Pachulia, and Dirk is playing the big man role most of the game. And you have to pay attention to that because if someone gets hurt, if Dirk is out, Dwight Powell becomes a guy that you want to look at massively in DFS and even season-long leagues. The point guard's Darren Williams' minute restriction is apparently over. He went 13, 3, and 4 in 36 minutes. Make sure he is owned in all leagues, even though he shot 27% from the field. Devin Harris, 9 and 6. Wes Matthews' minutes restriction is still there. 28 minutes for him, 8 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. If you owned him and you've held onto him, you might as well just keep holding him. Yes, the performances aren't great, but the minutes are going to slowly ramp up. If he's still providing this after 2-3 weeks at 4 minutes, then you can go, you know what? The Achilles has really robbed him of some of his ability. For now, you've held on this far. The minutes are slowly keep getting better, and his performance should start getting better as well. Same goes with Chandler Parsons. He played 14 minutes the first half only. These minutes are going to increase over the next couple of weeks. 9 points with 2 threes for him. He will obviously get better. Now, if you picked up Ray Felton, I apologize for picking him up. 19 points for Felton. Sorry, I wish it was 19 points. 19 minutes for Ray Felton, 6 points and 2 rebounds. In a standard league with these guys back, there's no point in holding on to Felton. He's still an intriguing guy on days when Matthews sits or when Parsons is limited in a daily fantasy point of view because of his low salary. But otherwise, he's going to have some decent games. It's just too unpredictable. John Jenkins completely out of the rotation now. Same with Jeremy Evans, two guys who showed a lot of promise at the start of the year, but all these guys are pretty much back now, and that's limiting their effectiveness or any reason to own those guys in any sort of league outside of the deepest of deep leagues. The Memphis Grizzlies and the Sacramento Kings is the next game we have a look at. The Grizzlies bounced back after a smashing at the hands of the Warriors in a pretty comfortable victory against the Kings. 14-6 for Conley, 20-11 for Randolph. Marcus Sol had to leave the game with a neck strain. He went 8 points with 2 rebounds and 2 assists in his 18 minutes. He has been disappointing this season. We don't know about the neck problem, if he's going to keep him out. He's considered questionable at the moment with this neck issue, so hopefully it doesn't keep him out for too long. If he does, Brandon Wright is going to get the biggest run. He played 28 minutes here, right? 10 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 blocks on his trademark efficiency, going 4 of 5 from the field. He becomes a really intriguing daily fantasy guy, Brandon Wright, and we'll just wait and see what they say with Gasol. But now it appears that Gasol might miss a game at most, and then Wright is a streaming guy and not a long-term sort of hold-on-to option. The wings in Memphis are still a bit of a mess. Matt Barnes, 24 minutes for 7 points, chipped in 2 blocks. Courtney Lee, 14 and 5 in 30 minutes, and he has apparently the most secure role. Tony Allen, 5 points, no steals. So if you rostered him, you definitely lost out any value he had. And Jeff Green, 5 and 4 in his 22 minutes. So they're just spreading the minutes between all those guys, and Lee seems to be the most consistent with what he's getting. Darren Collison again played more than Rajon Rondo, 31 minutes for Collison, 18 points and 3 threes with an assist and a steal. As much as Rondo's had a couple of good games, he stunk in this one. Collison is still the better player to me, and I'm glad that they're playing him those minutes. I just wish they'd put the ball in his hand a little bit more. Rudy Gay, 19 and 5 in his 32 minutes. Costa Koufos started next to Willie Cauley-Stein. Koufos went 11 and 6 with a steal. Cauley-Stein went 9 and 7 with a steal and a block in 34 minutes. So all those people who are rushing to grab Willie Cauley-Stein, this is the sort of performances, you'll get bigger performances than this. And 9 and 7 with a steal or block is not terrible, but it's also not fantastic. And it's also, if that's what he's going to do, that's not really valuable enough for 10-team leagues, and it's marginal for 12-team leagues. So just be aware that this is more Cauley-Stein to me, not 9 and 7 with a steal and a block. Again, it has its uses, but it's definitely not let's drop everything to make sure we go and grab him. Ben McLemore is doing nothing. 20 minutes for him, 2 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. He's really, really struggling, and there's no point in owning him or holding onto him in any standard leagues. While Rajon Rondo went 5, 6, and 4 on 2 of 10 shooting. Amazingly, he still took the second most amount of shots on this team. Missed probably the most shots on this team. Not a good night for Rondo. He has had a couple of good games, so let's give him a little bit of a pass. But given his past history, the leash is pretty short with Rajon Rondo. In the last game of the night, the Denver Nuggets and the Los Angeles Lakers, their big men were all out, with the exception of Kenneth Faried, who played. Joffrey Lavernier, Yusuf Nurkic, Nikola Jokic, all out. So we had to see J.J. Hickson unveiled. 25 minutes for Hickson, 17 and 7 with 2 blocks. If you were able to get word of that and in a DraftKings sort of format, and you could add J.J. Hickson onto a roster, he would have been great value. And same with Kenneth Faried, playing 40 minutes and going 28 and 15. But it's a pretty standard Kenneth Faried line with no steals, no blocks. 8 of 8 free throws is not very Kenneth Faried-esque, so a pretty good performance from him overall. But it's obviously inflated by the fact that Lavernier and Jokic weren't there. Danilo Gallinari went 21 and 8 with a steal and a block, so a good night from him. And Gary Harris continues to underwhelm. 22 minutes for Harris as the starter, 11, 3, and 2. He gave you those couple of steals, which is what he was sort of always going to do. That's where his value lies, and some threes. But overall, he's not a great starting option. Emmanuel Mudiay, 12 and 10 with 3 threes, a steal, and a block. The percentages were bad. The turnovers are bad, but we knew all that. You knew the turnovers were going to be bad. You knew the percentages were going to be bad, and hopefully you allowed for it. And Jameer Nelson chimed in with 9 assists off the bench. For the Lakers, Lou Williams, 24, 5, and 2 with 3 steals and a block. I think that he has to be owned in all 12-team leagues. He's putting up similar numbers to what he did in Toronto, and he is worthwhile. Kobe Bryant, 11, 3, and 5 with 2 steals and a 3. That's a good night from Bryant. Bad shooting as per usual from him, but again, you know you have to punt field goal percentage with Kobe. And Julius Randle, 16 and 5, a steal and a block, putting up some pretty good performances this season. Roy Hibbert lasted just 17 minutes in this game, 6 points, 2 rebounds, 2 blocks. He's been okay, but he's probably been a little bit underwhelming, and as has D'Angelo Russell, 7 points and 6 assists. Nick Young struggled back to earth for him, 3 points and 3 rebounds, and not really a huge amount else to talk about with the Los Angeles Lakers apart from Byron Scott's still a bad coach, but I don't think there's much that's going to be able to change that. Okay. That's it for the talk of Tuesday's game. We're going to take a short break here, and then we'll be back to preview the 10 games on Wednesday's slate.
I saw your picture today. Got me thinking about the things that I would say. But I know you're happy now and you're someplace far away. And I can't remember the way you taste. I walk down your old street.
All right, we're back now to talk about the games for tomorrow. There are 10 games on, so we're going to break all 10 of these games down from a daily fantasy point of view and hopefully enable you to set a winning lineup. Let's hope so. Anyway, that's the idea. The first game on the slate is the San Antonio Spurs and the Washington Wizards. The Spurs are favored by 3.5 points. We've got a pretty good total here, 202. Injury-wise, there's not a huge amount that we need to pay attention to in this game. There's nothing at all in terms of guys to really use my break during the day before the games. But at this point, everyone appears to be ready. Danny Green, he's been disappointing, but again, he's only 4,200. I think tournament. Actually, before we get into this, okay, I'll explain this for the Aussie guys who are sort of just getting their feet wet in DFS. When I say tournaments and GPP, it's the same thing. GPP stands for Guaranteed Prize Pool. It's those big tournaments. So you'll see them on FanDuel with thousands of people. The Moneyball slates are a little bit smaller. About 200 people in there, guaranteed prize, the 2,500, whatever it is in there. Where they have all slams and dunks and whatever, Tuesday's dunk or whatever it's called. It's the big tournament. That's the guaranteed prize pool. It's where about the top 10 to 15% of the entrants win prize money, and it's very much staggered to the top guy gets the big prize, and it comes down and comes down. In those sort of lineups, you have to get into the top 15% of people to win. So you need a lineup with high ceiling. So you need some cheap guys who can go well above what they're able to do, and guys who have got the ability to put up big numbers with a degree of variability. Cash games are things like head-to-heads and double-ups. So head-to-heads, me versus you, whoever wins, and you get the money in a head-to-head. The winner takes it all. In a double-up, you got 50 people in there. The top 23 get their money back. So you put $10 in, you finish in the top 23 out of 50, you get $20 back. You get double your money back. And with those, you want to have a lineup with a high floor. So you want less variability. You don't want to necessarily shoot for upside because you don't need to get into the top 10. You need to get into that top in a double up situation, the top half. You need to get into the top half. In a head to head, again, you're not trying to beat everyone. You're just trying to beat your opponent. So you want to be in that solid, really dependable sort of range. So you want to go with those guys. We'll break it down this way. GPPs, you want high ceiling. Cash games or head-to-heads, you want high floors. That's it. Cash, high floor. GPP, high ceiling. Danny Green, 4,200. He can go much bigger than this. So in a tournament, in a GPP, he's a pretty good player at that sort of price. He's had a really bad start to the season, averaging only 16 points so far. But if he gives you 25 points, he's easily exceeded that value, and it's not a big stretch to think that Danny Green is going to give you 25 fantasy points. Tony Parker's another guy who is priced at a pretty reasonable price for him, 5,000. It's not a huge ask for him to think to go over 20 to 25 fantasy points. He has struggled at times this year. He's only averaging 15.8, but in a tournament there are probably some worse options. Kawhi Leonard, there's not many worse options no, there's not many better options than him. We'll say it that way. $7,900. He's averaging almost 35. Sorry, he's averaging almost 40 fantasy points. He had 46 in his last game. He's been putting up some big numbers. You almost pencil him in for 18 to 20 points a night, scoring-wise. Fantasy points, you know you're going to get that close to 40. And at 8,000, he's a very, very good play. Not many other guys stand out to me here. John Wall, yeah, he's been great. He's been averaging 41 points. But yeah, John Wall is averaging 1.4 points more than Kawhi Leonard, and you have to spend an extra $1,500 on him. That's what makes Kawhi at that sort of price so appealing, and John Wall at $9,400, not so appealing. And both of them, yeah, their highest score for the season, 49 for Wall, 48 for Leonard. They're very similar, but you're paying so much more for John Wall, so that makes it hard to roster him. Now, if you've gone cheap in other areas and you've got 9,000 left at a point guard spot, then of course, you can get very comfortably 35 to 40 points off John Wall, and that has its value. But you're not expecting him to return big amounts at 9,400. It's hard to build a great lineup around it unless there's just tons of value plays around. And for Wednesday, even though it's a big slate, there's not a huge amount of those sort of guys around. Other guys in this game, I don't really love. LaMarcus Aldridge, I don't really like him at all at that price. Brad Beal at 7,200 is too expensive for me. He needs to get well in excess of what his best score is this season. His best score is only 33 this year. He needs to get 35 to 38 to even sort of break even, and that's not good enough for me. And Otto Porter at 5,500, he has a bit of intrigue. He's averaging 25 points per game this season. Had a game with 31, which is nice at that sort of salary. So he's someone that you can consider most definitely. The next game up is the Boston Celtics and the Indiana Pacers. Avery Bradley's a guy we need to check on for the Celtics. He's dealing with some wrist and finger issues. And Jan Mahimi, who I mentioned from the Pacers, who lasted just 5 minutes today with that back problem. We need to see how that situation plays out. For the Pacers, if Mahimi is out, we need to pay attention to Jordan Hill as a cheaper option, and we need to consider Miles Turner. For Boston with Avery Bradley, if he is out, Isaiah Thomas you'd have to think would get more minutes. You'd think that Evan Turner would get more minutes as well, but I don't think that it makes Evan Turner a guy that a must-play option. Miles Turner is minimum price. I reckon that even if Mahimi doesn't play, if Turner gets out there, he put up almost 19 points in 15 minutes today. He's averaging 17 points for the season. At 3,500, you almost have to put him out there. And if Mahimi is not playing, he's almost a must-play guy, Turner, especially in a tournament sort of field. Jay Crowder at 4,700 is okay. There's a little bit of value in him. I don't love Paul George at 8,300. I think that's a little bit expensive for me. He's averaging 34 points this season. He needs to go 40, 45 points to really return value in it. That's tough to do for him. And George Hill at 6,400. It's a pretty cheap price, and he had a great game in the last game. I don't know if I really love him against Boston here with Marcus Smart hounding him. Now, is it decent total? 201.5. The Celtics are 2.5-point favourites. I think George Hill has some value, but he doesn't scream out to me as a guy that I necessarily have to play in all sort of situations. Isaiah Thomas, though, if Avery Bradley's out there, George Hill gets a bump because Bradley's a pretty good defender as well. Isaiah Thomas at 7,200. Yeah, I don't mind the price. He's been averaging 34.7 points so far this season. I think that there is some value in him at that spot. By no means is he a must play, but if Bradley happens to miss, I think that we might see an extra 2 to 3 minutes from Thomas, and then that would push him into a position where you'd have to consider him. Marcus Smart at 5,800, I don't think I really want. Like, he had a good game last game, but unless he strings together a couple in a row, I definitely don't want to risk playing him in a cash game format. The next game, the Toronto Raptors, the undefeated Toronto Raptors, traveling to Oklahoma City. The Thunder are massive favourites. I'm not really sure that they should be massive favourites, to be honest. The Thunder are favoured by 9. We have a total of 211, which is the second highest total on the board. Hopefully, I don't think it's going to be a blowout, so I'm not really worried about blowout factor in this game. I think that Thunder will probably get the job done, but I reckon there's a lot of value in a lot of guys here. Kyle Lowry at 7,800 is putting up big numbers already this season. 42 he's averaging. That's great at that sort of price. I think Luis Scola is interesting from a daily point of view at 41. He's been averaging 21.7, and if he gives you 21.7 at 4,100, that's plenty. So he's a decent play. He's continuing to start, and even with what I've got him projected at 22 minutes, he can easily provide that sort of value for that salary. So don't be too scared off by the limited minutes for him. Different situation to seasonal leagues. I don't really want to invest in him long term, but for a daily point of view with the way he's playing, I think it's a good investment. And Jonas Valanciunas at 6,200, there's definitely some risk there, but I think that he can have a little bit of value. The big guns for Oklahoma City: Russell Westbrook 10,800, Kevin Durant 10,000. Westbrook is averaging 52, Durant is averaging 40. If I'm picking one of those two guys, it is Westbrook. It's tough, especially with so many games on, to put almost $11,000 of your salary cap onto Westbrook. I would probably be avoiding it personally, but I can see why you want to do it, because you know that he's got 70-point upside. So maybe in a tournament, a GPP, when he can go for 70 at that price, and then you can throw some of those other low price flyers in as well. Westbrook's one of those high-end guys who actually has high upside as well. So if I'm picking between one of those two guys, Westbrook and Durant, Westbrook is the one that I'm going to pick. Not many other guys to really pay too much attention to here. Enes Kanter at 6,600. No, I don't think I want to spend the money up there. Serge Ibaka at 71. I don't think that's a great price point for him. And DeMar DeRozan at 8,000. I definitely don't want DeMar DeRozan at 8,000. The New York Knicks and the Cleveland Cavaliers is the next game up on the slate. The Cavs are favored by 9.5. We've got a total of 202 points. We know that J.R. Smith is out for the Knicks. We don't know about Kristaps. J.R. Smith doesn't play for the Knicks. J.R. Smith is out for the Cavs. Kristaps Porzingis, he is a guy that is probable for the Knicks with that neck problem. So what does that mean if Kristaps is out? Well, it means that, hopefully, fingers crossed, it means the Cock starts. And Cock is priced at 4,700. If you don't know who Cock is, it's Kylo Quinn. He is averaging 21.9 points this year. I think that he can give you 25 or 26 if he gets a start. And at 4,700, he's a guy to have a look at. If Kristaps plays, I don't want to invest in him. But Robin Lopez is priced less than Kylo Quinn, if that makes any sense. He's at 4,500, and it's a lot of that's to do with the slow start he had to the season, so I do like him. I like his counterpart as well, Timofey Mozgov at 4,500. Definitely not appealing for standard leagues. Daily leagues, I think that there's potential for him to put up a 25-point line here against the Knicks. It is one of his former teams. Let's see how he goes. I think he has value. Kevin Love's had a really strong start to the season. He's only 7,600. I still like playing him in a lot of spots. And Jerrion Grant at 4,400. I just want him to start getting more minutes. I need him to start getting more minutes. He's averaging, for the season, he's averaging 24 minutes, which is okay. I want him up at 28. I don't think I want to play him at that price. LeBron James at 10,200. He had a massive game in the last one, his highest performance for the season at 50. He's averaging 43 for the year. You need him to put up a 50, though, to really return value at 10,000. So I would rather spend that extra $600 and get my hands on Russell Westbrook. And if J.R. Smith's out, Mo Williams becomes a guy, and so does Matthew Dellavedova. 55 for Mo Williams, 42. Well, not if J.R. Smith's out. J.R. Smith is out. So Matthew Dellavedova at 42, Mo Williams at 55 become guys to have a look at. Melo going up against LeBron is someone to have a look at. He was shut down by Kawhi, and we spoke about guys going up against Kawhi Leonard. 9,500. Do you invest in him? I don't think so. I don't think it's one that I really want to get involved with at that sort of price. There's probably better ways to spend your $9,500. The next game is not the Atlanta Hawks, is the Philadelphia 76ers and the Milwaukee Bucks. Robert Covington apparently sprained his knee again in practice, so we need to check on his status. He is now questionable with that knee sprain, so it's a real pain in the bum for anyone who owns Robert Covington. Not many other Sixers guys to pay attention to, but on the Milwaukee side of things, there's a lot. Michael Carter-Williams, he's probably going to play. He had an ankle problem at the end of that Nets game. He will likely play. Jabari Parker is back. Please don't play him. He is going to be at a minutes limit between 15 to 20. He is not going to produce enough for me to take that risk on him. OJ Mayo is questionable. Tyler Ennis is questionable. He has zero impact. And John Hansen, he is questionable with his Achilles problem. So there's a lot happening in this Bucks game. So if you don't have time to check the lineups before lock, it's probably best to stay away from a lot of these guys. Assuming OJ Mayo is out and Michael Carter-Williams plays, Jared Bayless is minimum salary. I think that you definitely want to have a look at him at minimum salary because, yes, he went off against the Nets, but even if he doesn't go off against the Nets, all he needs to provide you at minimum salary, if he gives you 20 points, it's well in excess of the value that is needed at that price point. And I think that he can do that pretty comfortably. So he's a guy to pay attention to. If Henson plays, I think he has the ability to return value at 4,400, but I don't trust what he's going to be able to do, so I'm avoiding him. And Michael Carter-Williams is a decent guy to look at 7,000, as is Giannis Antetokounmpo at 6,800. Both of those guys are in pretty decent spots to return value. For the Sixers, Jahlil Okafor at 5,700. I like putting the money down on him. He's at 26.4 points average this season. He had a bit of an off night against the Cavs the last game. Still put up 26, almost 27 points. So that's it's a good sign. And his price is less than 6,000. So I think he has pretty significant value. Greg Monroe, on the other hand, who's going to be going up against Okafor at 8,200. I don't want to be spending $8,200 on Greg Monroe. It feels too expensive for me. Yes, he's been averaging 40.5 points, and yes, he's against the Sixers. But there's also the chance that they sit some guys against the Sixers. The spread in this game is the Bucks by 10 with a low over/under. I couldn't blame you for playing Monroe. I can see that he's been putting up big numbers, but it doesn't feel great to me. Nick Stauskas is a great punt play in the tournament, 3,800 for him, and TJ McConnell at 3,500, another guy who he put up 34 in his last game. McConnell, you probably doubt he's going to put up that, but Coach Brett Brown said that he's going to have to go with him. He likes the sort of fire that he gave his team, and that's worth it at 3,500. If he goes up and puts 30 points, you're laughing. You're way up the top of lists. And same with Stauskas at that sort of price point. The guy I'm avoiding is obviously Chris Middleton, and I definitely don't want to be putting forgot the guy's name, Robert Covington. That's him. I don't want to be putting him into any lineups given we don't know he's going to play, and even when he did play, the minutes will be pretty limited from him. The Brooklyn Nets and the Atlanta Hawks, a few injuries to pay attention to here. Thabo Sefolosha is likely back, but we might not see Kyle Korver with his ankle resting rehab situation that he's currently going through. Just had a question coming from Trulgauskas. Is Stauskas a decent play with Covington out over someone like Bazemore? Yeah, I do think that Stauskas is a pretty decent play. We don't know if Covington's out just yet, but it appears that he's going to be. So thank you for tweeting that in, Trulgauskas. Back to the Hawks and the Nets. Korver, we don't know if he's going to play. Now, Bazemore is still valuable. I think that Bazemore is going to have some value at 4,700. He's putting up some pretty nice numbers this season, averaging 21.5. And if Korver's out, maybe some more looks go his way. So he's not a bad guy to pay attention to. Dennis Schroeder is at 4,500. He had a really bad game today. This could be a situation, though, where the Hawks blow out the Nets. The Nets are probably one of the worst teams in the league. The Hawks are favored by 8, a total of 197. If Teague plays 26 minutes, we might see Schroeder getting 24 to 25. And if he drops a 20 to 25 point fantasy night on the Nets, it's enough at 4,500. You can't rely on it, but it's not bad throwing him into one of your tournament lineups and seeing it, because that situation could turn in his favor in this game. He was brutal today. He didn't put up good numbers at all. But you think there's going to be somewhat of a bounce back, and the opportunity is there for him. I really like Al Horford and Paul Millsap again. They're both still under 8,000, so there's some value for both of those guys. Whereas Jeff Teague at 7,100, don't really love it. Yes, he's got the ability to go over that, but I don't love getting him in there at that price. Nor Brook Lopez at 7,700, who hasn't recaptured the form that he had at the end of last season. Not really even close to it. The Orlando Magic and the Houston Rockets is the next game up. The Rockets are favored by 9 points. We have a total of 208 for this game. We don't know the status of Terrence Jones, who has an eyelid laceration. We don't know the status of CJ Watson for Orlando. Well, we know the status. Terrence Jones is questionable and CJ Watson is probable. Watson has a lip laceration. Watson doesn't really impact our fantasy games that much. Terrence Jones does. He's only priced at 5,700. So if we hear that he's going to play, and you think that if he doesn't play, he's not going to have restriction, I love him at that sort of price. I think that tournaments, you definitely want to have a look at him there. If he is out again, the Rockets might run Marcus Thornton out there. And at 3,900, he's averaged 24 points across the 2 games that he's played. At 3,900, you have to get Marcus Thornton into your lineup if you know that he's starting again and Terrence Jones is out. That's something to monitor. Nick Vucevic at 8,000, I really love him. He's really consistent in what he brings. He's averaging 38 points against a Rockets team if Jones is out and Howard, maybe a little bit banged up. Vucevic, I think, can put up in excess of 40 points at 8,000, which is good value. Corey Brewer at 4,100 has some decent value. Again, he's an underrated sort of player. Allows you to play some of these other high-priced players. If he's giving you 24, 25 points, which he can do at 4,000, there's value there. And Trevor Ariza has been really quiet to start the season. At 5,600, I think that he can be a decent guy to look at against Orlando. Orlando does give up a lot of points, and they do play some high-scoring games, so I think that this is a decent spot for him. James Harden is under 10,000. He's at 9,900. He put up 55 in the last game. I love James Harden at this point. Again, out of all these big money guys, he is probably the best one of them at that sort of price. At under 10,000, I love getting a James Harden at that spot. And Fournier at 4,500. It's really hard to ignore what he's doing at the moment, averaging almost 30 points. He's pretty much a must-play option at that sort of salary. I'm avoiding Ty Lawson. I'm avoiding Toby Harris. I'm avoiding Alfred Payton. And Victor Oladipo at 8,100. Yeah, it's not bad, but I reckon we can do better, much like we can do better than the 8,200 that you have to spend to get Dwight Howard in your lineup. The next game we take a look at is the Sacramento Kings and the Phoenix Suns. We know that there's no Boogie Cousins. Devin Booker is questionable with an ankle sprain, but he doesn't really impact things too much. TJ Warren at 3,700, I really like him at that price. He only put up 20 points in the last game, but at 3,700, that's more than enough. And Costa Koufos is another massive low-price guy at 3,800. He's going to be starting in place of Boogie. He put up 19 in that game, and again, 19 is not sexy, but at 3,800, it enables you to put a $10,000 guy in who can get you 55 or 60, and that's where the value lies in him. Markieff Morris, I think, is really valuable at 5,900 too. And I like Eric Bledsoe and Brandon Knight at 79 and 7,000 respectively. Omri Caspi is a little bit of a cheeky play at 4,000. He can give you 25 points, and at 4,000, that's okay. And Tyson Chandler at 6,100, not bad, especially without Boogie Cousins in the lineup. I think the matchup favors him in that sort of perspective. Willie Cauley-Steins at 5,200. That's an extra 1,400 extra than Costa Koufos. He outscored Koufos by 2 points today. That is not worth an extra $1,400. We're obviously avoiding Rajon Rondo. Not really sure I'm going to spend $7,900 on Rudy Gay here either. And Darren Collison at 5,700. Yes, Collison's been playing well, but 5,700 is actually a little bit expensive for the way that he is producing in daily fantasy. Second last game of the night is the Portland Trailblazers and the Utah Jazz. Derek Favors was sent home from practice with an illness, so he is considered questionable to play. We need to pay attention to that. Obviously, if he is out, Trevor Booker becomes the guy that you want to look at. He is priced at 4,000, and we saw last year when Favors or when Gobert didn't play, Booker was able to put up really, really big numbers. So he is a guy that if we hear during the day that Favors is out, Trevor Booker at 4,000, you need to get on that. Rodney Hood at 4,500 is a remarkably good play. I really think that he's a really good player. He's averaging 24 points per game this season. He's got 35 point upside, and I really think that you like looking at him there. Harlan Neto at 3,500. He put up 2 points in the last game. He's going to be better than that. And again, this is a minimum salary. Enable you to get players like Harden, like Westbrook, like Durant into your lineup. He's worth a look. Does Gordon Hayward bounce back? Hopefully. He's priced at 6,800, so his price has come down a little bit. So I think that he becomes a really nice sort of contrarian option against a Blazers team who doesn't have the greatest defense. Yes, Utah slows the game down. The total is 191, which is not big, but I think that Hayward makes it interesting. Not many people are going to be playing Gordon Hayward. His price has come down significantly enough for me to consider that worth a look. Not many other guys really stand out. Damian Lillard at 8,900. Against Utah and against Rudy Gobert, I don't love it, nor do I love it with CJ McCollum at 6,400. Yes, they've both been playing really, really well, but at that sort of salary and against Utah, it's not an ideal matchup for them. Al-Farouq Aminu has been putting up some big numbers. He's priced at 5,700, so the salary's coming in line to where it needs to be, and it probably makes it hard for me to recommend him there when he's only averaging 27 points. And Rudy Gobert at 8,100, I don't want anything to do with him at 8,100. He hasn't had a 40-point game this season, and he needs to give you over 40 points just to sort of return value at that salary. The last game of the night is the Clippers and the Warriors. The biggest total of the night here, the Warriors are favored by 8 points. The total is 218 points. Andrew Bogut is questionable with a concussion. We do not think that he will play. So Festus Ezeli gets the biggest bump, and he is still minimum salary. He put up 28 in the last game. I know he won good friend of the show, Super Buck Wild, some big money with a big performance from Festus Ezeli. I wouldn't be expecting 28 points from him again, but he's worth looking at minimum salary. Not much else really appeals to me here. Steph Curry's at 10,800, but this is there's a chance. Oh no, you know what? They're against the Clippers, so they're still favored by 8. I don't think there's much chance of a blowout. But 10,800, yes, Curry's been putting up big numbers. I would rather spend the extra 1,000 less and put in James Harden, but I can see the rationale behind using Steph Curry. He's had a 77-point game already this year. He's averaging 56, which is obviously fantastic. Does Chris Paul slow him down? I think Steph Curry gets up for matches like this, so I think there's a pretty decent chance you can use Curry, but it's not going to be for every sort of lineup. It really depends on how you're building your lineups. Blake Griffin's been amazing this year as well, but he is now priced at $10,000, and that makes it hard for him to use. And he was great in the last game, only put up 39 points, and at 10,000, 39 points doesn't cut it. Same with Draymond Green at 7,800. That is too expensive for my tastes. So what I'll do now, which I forgot to do yesterday, and I do apologize for that, is put up some my daily fantasy picks of the day. You've got each position and 3 picks at each position. It's a cheap guy, a less than $5,000 player, a player between 5 and 7.5, and then a high-end guy, so over 7.5. For point guards, Jared Bayless is minimum salary, especially if OJ Mayo is out again and Carter Williams is limited. That's a great option. Brandon Knight at 7,000. He's been really good this season. And Kyle Lowry, as I mentioned, the second best player in fantasy so far this year at 7,800. That is a steal. Shooting guards, Rodney Hood at 4,500, Giannis Antetokounmpo at 6,800, and Eric Bledsoe at 7,900. They're all really good values, I think. Small forward, TJ Warren at 37, Gordon Hayward at 6,800, and Kawhi Leonard at 7,900. Love the Leonard pick at 79. Power forwards, Luis Scola, 41, Thad Young at 55, and Paul Millsap at 79. And at center, Costa Koufos, one of the biggest bargains on the board at 3,800. Jahlil Okafor at 57, and Nick Vucevic at $8,000. That does it for all the talk of DFS. Just going to go back and answer a couple of listener questions that came through. Let's get to the first one from Michael, who's on Twitter at Mick Para. Talks of Chalmers to Memphis. Any fantasy value? That's Mario Chalmers. Talks of Memphis trying to trade from Mario Chalmers. The answer is no, Michael. What's he going to do? Slide into a backup role and battle Beno Udrih? No, nothing really changes with his value. A real hero on Twitter at @ball_hawk. Markieff Morris or Kristaps Porzingis the rest of the season in head-to-head points. Hard to know me exactly without knowing his scoring system, but I'm pretty confidently going to say Morris. Francis Parker at Francis Zomes on Twitter says Jeremy Lamb or Kent Bazemore. Don't buy into the Jeremy Lamb 9 of 10 shooting from one game. It's not sustainable. Bazemore, I don't think he's a good player, but I'd rather have Bazemore than Lamb at this point in the season. Fred Mutto on Twitter at Fred Mutto. Is Luis Scola for real? No. Terrence Jones and Eric Gordon are dropped in my league. Would you drop Porzingis for Terrence Jones if I need blocks? Terrence Jones and Eric Gordon shouldn't be dropped unless this is an 8-team league. Both of those guys need to be owned. Yes, Jones is frustrating to own, but he's got top 50 upside. Porzingis is a really, really good player. You've probably got someone worse to drop than Porzingis, but I'm actually okay dropping Porzingis for Terrence Jones because Jones, I think, is going to be the better player this season. VP 90244. Is Aaron Gordon officially toast? Skiles is screwing around with his minutes. He's pretty much toast for standard leagues at the moment. The upside is clearly tantalizing, but when is he going to be able to realize it if he's just not getting on the court? And that's the way the situation is currently going. Simon Fox at SJ Foxy 1979. Is your number one pick stinking or smashing it? Mine stinks. #AD. I don't know if he stinks. He definitely hasn't been putting up number one fantasy value. My number one pick was Steph Curry, so I'm pretty happy with the way things are running at the moment. Not that I got to draft him anyway, because I didn't get a number one pick in any draft, unfortunately. That draft that I did have the number one pick for, the timing of the draft didn't work with my schedule, so I had to pull out of it. My number one pick was Steph Curry, so I'm pretty happy with the way that is working. Just Be Aware on Twitter at Just Be Aware. Is cat for real, Karl Anthony Towns? A great season start, but he's a rookie, and is he due to slow? If you trade him or for him, what value does he have? Rookies, I think we hear the term rookie wall. It doesn't really seem to apply much in the NBA. It's generally a rookie learning curve. They start off slow and they get better and better. And we get to February and March and rookies really start to pick things up. Now, Towns had 2 good games and a slow game. I think he's going to get better as the season progresses. Value, I think that by the end of the year, he's probably a top 50 guy. It's hard to give up top 50 value now for him in return, but I think that rookies in general, and the vast majority of them, improve significantly as the season goes on. And especially once it ticks over into 2016, you'll see a lot of rookies putting up much better numbers than they are now. So, yes, Cat's for real. I think that he is going to be he's going to be an awesome player. Temecula Fight Club, that's a great name. On Twitter at STurner86. Put an estimated value on your build's player rank, i.e., so he's talking about waiver claim options. Because he had another tweet was to do with that. You know, if you've got waiver priority 1, do you only burn it on a top 60 player? If you've got waiver priority 2 on 60 to 80. Now, I'm not someone who values waiver priority all that highly. I see a lot of people, I don't want to pick up this guy because I don't want to burn my number 1 waiver priority. Some people end up saying that and then just never use it all season and let other guys go past. Sometimes you just got to take a risk on it. Now, there are guys in sort of not great situations where you go, okay, maybe I don't want to take a risk. But if it's someone that's been dropped and shouldn't have been dropped, if Monte Ellis is dropped, use waiver priority 1 on him because there's pretty much no doubt he's going to be a top 60 sort of guy, a top 75 sort of player. If you can get a top 75 sort of player, you have to use waiver priority 1. I'm not really, and look, if it's a guy that you want, you think, you know what, I think this guy's going to have top 100 value all season, but you go, I don't want to burn waiver priority 1. Somebody else is going to put a claim on him, and you're not going to get the guy. I'd rather just get the guy, and you know what, if he ends up sucking after a month, whatever, you burnt waiver wire priority 1. Who cares? It doesn't bother me that much. I'm not using it for these, you know, Kent Bazemore's or Jeremy Lamb's and go, I need to go and grab him with my waiver priority 1. But if someone who's good got dropped or decent, or you think is this guy's a lock for the top 100 this season, if you think Marcus Morris is a lock for the top 100, if you think Kristaps Porzingis is a lock for the top 100, use it. If you think they're a startable player, which is top 100 in most leagues, use it. Don't just hold on to it for the sake of holding on to it. I don't subscribe to that theory whatsoever. All right, we are done for today's podcast. It was a good show. Back obviously tomorrow to recap the 10 games, then look at the 5 games from Thursday. And most likely we'll have Seth Klein on tomorrow's show as well if everything holds together. So make sure you're checking out Seth on the show. Of course, check out things on Basketball Monster. I'm going to have a little small article that goes every day called The Morning Update, which I just, sort of a summary of the podcast, a few little notes and that in there, so you can check that out. Obviously, the great tools they've got over there, the forums, the daily projections, all that sort of stuff. Make sure if you're in Australasia, you're checking out moneyball.com.au, and of course, Hardwood Paroxysm and this podcast. Subscribe to it, leave a review, become a sponsor for the day, get your name shouted out at the start of the show. We are done with today's show. It has been a great show. I've been very happy with I'm happy with all the content of the questions that you guys sent through as well. It just provokes great discussion. So thank you to everybody who does contribute there. Follow me on Twitter at redrock_bball. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.